Imagine for a moment a world without art, without dance, opera, literature, poetry. That world would be a very, very dull place.
Today on the show, we are going to talk about the brutal socialist communist takeover of downtown Seattle by Antifa and other black-booted thugs. And to really go over this important socialist uprising, we have Che, my man in the street, who's actually going to tell us what's going on in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So for those of you who haven't been following the news, the protests in Seattle were no laughing matter. Seattle has had some of the most violent scenes coming out of it. The police were banned from using tear gas by the mayor and the city council, and then they used tear gas again. And, you know, things just escalated to a point that protesters just started blocking off streets, about 6 square blocks of downtown Seattle over in the Capitol Hill district. And basically what happened is the mayor ordered the police to back down. And so that 6 blocks that these protesters have just been inhabiting and refusing to let go has almost become its own commonwealth within the city of Seattle. It's yeah, I mean it's an experiment, I would say, in like just kind of like libertarian socialist kind of an ecosphere. No cops aren't allowed. There's no real government overlooking it. It's just a bunch of people kind of living freely and doing as they will. And the weirdest thing about this is that there is so much misinformation coming out from right-wing sources that you really don't know what's going on. Fox News was caught photoshopping images that they had taken there. There were other, stories stating that, they had ran out of food. There wasn't any water. People were sick.
Oh man, absolutely. So let me let's crank the wheel back a little bit. So the way you started the intro, archo-communist, libertarian hellhole. It's all black boots and thugs everywhere. Let's be very clear. No. Basically give the listeners a little bit of background. If you've never been to Seattle, if you've never heard of Capitol Hill, another city neighborhood you might think of would be like Brooklyn or maybe like Wrigleyville in Chicago. This is a very, 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 very liberal area. It's you could see in the photos behind me, the art that's spray painted up on the buildings behind me. And for those that you don't know, this is a photo that I actually took on Saturday when I was down at the Chaz. And so what Capitol Hill is, again, it's a it's a neighborhood, it's a boys' town, it's whatever you want to call it. It's your kind of bohemian kind of hangout spot for young affluent folks. There's a college nearby, lots of bars, awesome nightlife. So again, this is if once social gathering, social unrest, young people protesting, naturally this is the neighborhood where this is going to happen. So what happened down there? Now, I will say I am a resident of Seattle. I do not live in Capitol Hill. I live nearby. I'm about 2 miles away. I rode my bike down there. It's a quick bus ride. And so what I experienced was weekend rolled around. I did my usual thing, gaming with the boys, having a couple beers. I woke up on Sunday and it was a text message from my friends like, dude, are you okay? What's going on in Seattle? This and that. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, whatever, dude. Like, we spent all night gaming. So anyway, roll out of bed, start watching the news. There's just like all this talk about this like takeover and people are drawing guns and all this and that. there's there's a lot of protests going on. Yes, there are protests going on. And basically, what had happened was that the Seattle Police Department has a very long history of being very, very, very brutal and very violent to the public and in public spaces.
Mhm.
There's plenty of videos before all these events of specifically Seattle cops doing
Right.
stuff. So you're in a neighborhood that already has a lot of like-minded folks that are very left-leaning, that are very upset about the cause, that are or I should say are actually doing something for the cause. So you have a lot of folks that are gathering in an area. You have a lot of violent cops. I cannot point fingers. I wasn't there. I don't know who initially started the thing, but I can tell you that there are some very, very, very clear videos. One, namely, that came from a rooftop at Capitol Hill, where you see a gal with an umbrella get pulled by the cops into like the swarm of cops, and then tear gas just starts going everywhere.
Hmm.
So you have a crowd of, I don't know, 6 to 10,000 people that's getting tear gassed. Well, for I want to say like 10 to 11 days straight, those cops stood in this intersection, power washing the fucking streets with tear gas, and people would get maced up. They'd take a shower and they'd come right the fuck back. And so what I put together was that the cops ran out of resources. They got tired because their only tactic of violence and brutality failed, and they
Yep.
had no other options, and so they left. There
Yep.
was no takeover. There was no storming of this. There was no brandishing of guns. There was no battle of Capitol Hill. What it was we have sprayed these people with tear gas for 12 days and they're still coming back. What do we do? The
Yeah.
answer is, let them figure it out. Well, that I shouldn't say that's what the answer is. Their answer was, let them figure it out, and we'll pull back, because it's just like, I don't know. We saw police precincts abandoning ship in Minneapolis. We're
Yeah.
seeing it in
Yeah.
Seattle. We're seeing it in Atlanta. We're seeing it all over the place. And what happened when the cops left? The violence disappeared.
Yeah.
Correlation or causation, man, I don't know. Again, I wasn't there for the beginning of this whole thing.
Well, I mean, a lot of this movement in general, though, is about changing the way officers perceive interaction with the people, because the only thing they know how to do is force, and that's just because of decades of training and militarization of that training. That's the only thing, that's the only way they know how to respond. So I mean, the one thing that the protesters did do is, I mean, it's like an unmovable or an unmovable object, an unstoppable force, right? One's going to give eventually, and the people just force the police, force Seattle police in particular, and other cities all over the country in other instances, to
I mean, I would
realize that
even
force
be
isn't the
hesitant of using the
option.
word force, man. It's like, I would say withstood,
Yeah.
like I said, like they didn't show up with batons and molotovs with the intention that, hey, we're gonna take over this public space. They didn't show up. They showed up with umbrellas and vinegar and water bottles and masks to cover their face and their eyes to protect themselves.
Mhm.
Pieces of plywood so they wouldn't get beat with batons. You know what I mean? So it's like, when you see, like, I got a lot of footage, a lot of videos that I want to show you. When you see the number of people that are down there, like, if we wanted to burn down the city, it would have been burned down.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, we're talking like the number of cops, like you're talking 150 to maybe 300 cops at one time, versus a crowd of 10,000 to upwards of 50, 60,000. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
do the math. I mean, if they really wanted those videos of what Fox News has been putting out there to be real, we could make it real.
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening. What's happening are, people are getting fed, restaurants are donating food, people are getting band-aids. Like, we're healing, man. Like, it's this
Yeah.
place of healing. So I don't know. Do you want to kind of take a tour of the Chaz virtually, and
Yeah,
I'll kind of
absolutely.
we'll
Well, I
kind of
guess,
build a vibe.
yeah. Well, I guess before we start looking at the video footage, then I guess, I mean, when you found out about it, what were your first initial thoughts? Going down in there, like I know you didn't automatically believe the hype, but I mean, was there any feelings of uncertainty?
Well, I don't know. It was weird because so I've lived in Seattle for about 8 months now, and Seattle, I don't know, man. It's a major port city, so it's always in the news about something. COVID, we were like one of the first cities. Like it's always so. And I've lived in Chicago before that, so like being in an area of like when you turn on the news and you hear about it, it's so I don't know. Like when I hear about Seattle or Chicago on the news, you know, my ears perk up, but I'm not like freaked out.
Right, right.
But with COVID and now this, like I was just kind of like, God damn it! Now why are we in the news now? What is happening now? Like that was my first reaction, and then I started kind of watching what was going on, and I saw the images, and I saw like the reports on. Let's see, I jumped on Reddit first, and I called up a couple friends that actually live in Cap Hill. My friend Michelle, and she's like, "Dude, get down here, man. There's free hot dogs. There's free donuts, dude." So I'm looking at Fox News. I'm looking at CNN. I'm looking at Reddit, and it's just like people get beat in the street and tear gas and spray paint and blood and curb stomp this. And then I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and they're just like, "Nah, man, like Voodoo Donuts is hooking it up, man. Like freaking Fire Cakes is like handing them out. Like there's So it's just like, what is going on?" So of course, I grabbed my little microphone and GoPro and hop on the bike and scoot down there and found out.
Yeah, I find that just hilarious that they're handing out free donuts in the one place cops can't go.
It's
Like it
awesome.
said, like it's troll move 3,000.
It's freaking awesome. So, so I'm going to show you some videos. Hopefully, we can capture the audio. The first one in particular is the worst audio quality. It gets much better as I go through here. But I'm also going to show you these in chronological order.
Okay.
I haven't edited these in any way. I'll kind of give you like an estimated length at the beginning. I'm not going to talk during it, but then afterwards we can kind of review and get your feelings on it. So without further ado, let me do a little screen share. And here is our first one. So this first video is me walking into the Chaz from the north entrance.
Love it. Sir, I love it. Do you mind if I give a couple words? Where are we today?
We are Capitol Hills.
What brought you out today?
I'm playing jazz. It's the music of life that they created. And that's my favorite music. Where should I be today? Right? Play Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles. That's my favorite musicians. So that's what I'm supporting.
So you're here supporting the arts and what they've created and the culture that's been.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Exactly.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What's your response to how things are being portrayed?
I'm not so deep in politics.
Okay. All right. What's your general vibe? How do you feel today?
How I feel today? It's safe here, definitely. It's all BS what you hear in the news. So you see, it's cool here.
Yeah.
I think we deserve to have maybe in Seattle area like that. Okay. Like free zone, really, it's kind of
Yeah,
And maybe that's a good idea.
I think so.
Yeah, it's a stress relief place, man. You know.
Well, I appreciate you bringing the stress relief out, man.
Thank you.
You're beautiful. The instrument that you've chosen is
Tuba. It's not chosen. It's a destiny, bro.
yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Did you play? Did you march?
I can't do that. Yeah, if it's got the right guys, right band, like little kind of drummer, maybe horns, like we can do stuff. You know.
Awesome. Awesome.
You know. So.
Well, I much appreciate you. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
So, first thing I saw walking in to the Chaz is this dude playing jazz tuba. Say what you will, I've never seen jazz tuba before, but it kind of took my breath away. And what the guy said, you know, I asked him, like, why are you here today? And he said jazz, and he's like sitting there with a tuba, like,
Yeah.
you know, he's like, hey, you know, these are the guys, like this is, they made this stuff, you know, this is what I'm here to enjoy, this is what you're enjoying, like, let's celebrate. So that was the first thing I saw when I came in there, you know. So yeah, you know, take that for how you will. I don't know what your thoughts were, but I thought that was fantastic intro.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you know, he said something along the lines of, I think, you know, we as a people deserve a free society. I think that's what he said.
Free space, a free zone.
A free space, yeah.
Yeah.
A free space. So, you know, so with that though, like, I don't know, there's something about the arts that just defines a free space. And, you know, if, you know, music is an art form, there's nothing freer than jazz. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that bends the rules and allows you to reinterpret music, allows you to I don't know, just kind of venture off and do your own thing the way jazz does. Because, you know, a lot of times it's very airy, it's very loose, and, you know, the further you go into fusion, the more abstract things are going to get.
And you know what, dude? As corny as it sounds, and I hate saying it because I just thought of this, the Chaz is jazz. Like, I know it's gross, but stick with me. Think through with me on this one. It's exactly what you just said. Politically, economically, spiritually, communitively, it's free form. It's taking what existed before and reapplying the rules and stirring things up and applying tempo and drag in weird places. And I don't know, man. Like, is it the source of change? Is it a place of contention? I don't know. It's just like a jazz concert. It's just as much in contention and difficult as live music is, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of look at it as like, what was that bar that Hemingway and all those intellectual writers used to meet at in France in like the early 20s? Was that the Ritz?
Oh, man, I couldn't tell you, dude. I'm
Well,
not the guy to ask.
well, it's kind of like in that same vein, right? Like,
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
have these, like, when you have this, like, you know, free space, this kind of like free
Oh, yeah.
culture, free share of ideas, it's going to automatically lure in creative people.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, that's the kind of environment that allows them to thrive.
And that's the kind of environment that Capitol Hill is. You know, it's like I was saying before. It's an entertainment kind of area. It's a lot of nightlife. There's a lot of you can be who you want to be down there, and nobody's going to question anything.
Right,
You know?
right.
You ain't showing them anything they haven't seen. You know, so
Yeah, they've been around that block a few times or six.
yeah, you know, it's I don't know. So just be like, when I walked in and I saw that dude sitting there playing jazz tuba, I was just like, where's Fox News getting this stuff, man? I've been here for 35 seconds, and this is all I've been seeing. So I kind of walked a little bit further. So I was on the north end of the block, and I was kind of walking south. And so basically there's an intersection right in front of the Capitol Hill Police Precinct office, whatever you want to call it, right there. The People Precinct now. And this intersection, like, I'm kind of walking south past it. And so I captured this, which this is a clip. It's only about a minute. And what it is, I'm standing in front of the police department, and you can see the Seattle people. The people spray paint behind it. I'll pull that video up so you can see it. And I just want to play this so you kind of get a vibe for what the streets looked like. So, what are your thoughts there, Jim? What did you see?
Well, right off the bat, I am going to give everybody their props for wearing masks because, like, just looking through this, chaotic space, right? Quote unquote. Everybody's still following social guidelines. Everyone's still like a good 6 feet apart, wearing masks, being conscientious of each other. Honestly, I did not see, really anybody doing anything out of the ordinary. People are just going about their lives, which, kind of reinforces the idea that, deep down, the majority of people are good people.
Absolutely. Every single person had a mask.
Yeah.
If you weren't engaging with somebody, if you weren't with your group, with whoever you came with,
Mhm.
you stayed away. It looks like a big crowd. It is, but at the same time, when people were moving past each other, they certainly made the effort as best
Yeah.
they could.
Absolutely.
The other thing I thought was kind of interesting in there is in that video you see everyone moving from the right side of the screen to the left. They're going from the south end of the block to the north, and that's because basically there's two intersections that make up the Chaz. One which is in front of the police precinct, the people precinct that we saw that the last video was at, and the other is about 200 yards down the road. And what you have are two speaker setups and like PAs. So down in one you have folks doing chants and crowd work, and then up at the other one where everyone was moving to, they actually have lecture series, and they have different authors and professors and just socialites up there giving literally lectures about racism and histories and so it was interesting because they have an organized program. That's as much organization as I saw.
Right.
Like all this discussion in literature and media that we're seeing of like guns and stuff being toted around. Again, didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say that kind of gave them, I don't know, it kind of paints the movement better is that, when the first night that the Chaz was more or less up and going, they had public showings of documentaries. 13th, they've had a lot of different speakers come out, authors come out. They're using it as an opportunity, not just to protest, but to educate the community, which is very important.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say above all, like that's what I've seen the most. That's the most organization is based around just the speeches and the opportunity that the people are there. So I want to let me jump into this other video. Now this next video, again, it's in the same place that I was filming before from all the people that were moving to the speech.
Okay.
And in front of me, I noticed this gal doing an illustration. So this is our discussion of her doing an illustration.
Where are we at today?
We're at the Chaz,
What is that?
the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
What does that mean to you?
It means it's a place where nobody's really in control. Certainly authorities not in control. And people who are here wanting to cause change are all getting together and doing what they feel is the right thing to do.
What brought you here today?
I live in this neighborhood, and my son, who's 17, has been protesting a lot. And also I'm an artist, and I do urban sketching, and I wanted to come. This is how I experience places, is to sketch it, and I wanted to feel it out. And I also wanted to see, I don't know, I kind of want to disprove what's on the media about what's happening here, which is crazy. Crazy! I don't recognize anything I'm seeing on the media.
Can you expand on that?
Well, first of all, I was hearing how huge it was when it was only 2 blocks. Hearing about there being armed guards. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe there was one, I don't know. That people are openly doing drugs everywhere, that it's a homeless encampment, that it's violent. So I haven't really seen. I mean, there's a garden, for God's sake. People are planting flowers, there's free food everywhere, there's dogs, there's kids. So yeah. Are you reporting for somebody?
Yeah, I have a friend out of Chicago, Illinois. He runs a little podcast out there. We talk to all kinds of artists. I recently moved out here and found myself in the middle of this situation too. And I said, hey man, let me go get you some media. So
right on.
Cardboard and microphone, here I am. Yeah. What medium are you expressing yourself with today?
So right now, this is just pen, and then I go in with black watercolor or ink and do a wash. So I do value study and
wonderful.
That sort of thing. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
thanks.
Is there any? Do you host?
So yeah, watercolor lady.
Oh, that is awesome that she's just trying to capture that moment through her medium. You know what I mean?
That's the pretty heavy watercolor, man.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah, I mean, you know, that's a mom. You know, it's just somebody's mom who likes to draw. And like she's down there capturing this epically historic moment, standing on this intersection of, you know, an abandoned police department. Pretty powerful.
Yeah. Now, there's been a lot of reports of you know, them burning down the police department, smashing it all up. Can you go ahead and confirm that that police department is still standing and it's being used for? I mean, it hasn't been destroyed. There's still
it's still standing. You know, so there's multiple. It's the windows, as far as I can see, are completely boarded up with plywood, and then around that they have a chain link fence, and then you have a bunch of folks that are kind of there just to make sure nobody's furthering the destruction and continuing property destruction.
Right.
So they've kind of put a kibosh on you know, folks being jerks and throwing rocks and stuff. Are there broken windows? Yeah, you know, yeah, absolutely. Has it been burned to the ground? No, not at all.
So are people from the Chaz actually hanging out in it? Are they using it for, you know, other purposes, or did they pretty much just board it up? So, you know, it just you know, it isn't. It's just kind of out of sight, out of mind at that point.
Well, what it is it's two intersections, and there's a football soccer field park. Like the photo that's behind me, if you kind of keep going down the road that way, there's a big soccer field, and people are just like hanging out on the backside of the soccer field. There's a park, and there's probably 30 to 40 tents of people camping out. So that gal,
just a big music festival without the music.
Bingo. That gal that said, you know, it's 6 blocks, it's actually 2. She's right. It's literally like, you know, the intersection where the PD's at, and then you go down the road. There's like a little soccer field, and that's it. So I don't know, man. It's crazy of how like much they've blown this thing up. One thing I did think was very, very cool was the crowd control methods, and also kind of going back to it as a lecture series or classes. I stumbled into a thing that they called the Conversation Cafe. This is about a 9-minute clip. It's a little bit long. I think the folks that I talked to, they were definitely ready to talk. So if you want me to pause to like kind of review anything, just let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to kind of let this play and let these folks have it.
Yeah. We'll dissect it afterwards.
All right, cool. So let me bust out the share. And this is down in the Conversation Cafe. I'm sitting next to a gal, probably about 30. Across from us is a dude, maybe mid-30s. And we're sitting on 2 couches facing each other.
Okay.
All I ask is that you speak up pretty loud and clear because we have masks on. So where are we today?
We're in Capitol Hill, occupied protest.
Okay, what does that mean?
That means that we are here protesting. We are not necessarily trying to create an autonomous zone. We are occupying a space in order to have a protest.
What brought you out today?
Black Lives Matter and dismantling white supremacy.
Beautiful.
And community, connection, art, dance, music,
Can you
education.
tell me more about that? How's that being expressed today?
As you can see, when you look around, there's lots of art happening all over the place. We've got a dream board right behind me. People are creating their visions for the future. We've got a board across the street that is talking about what we've learned so far, what we still have to learn. You're sitting on a discussion couch right now where people can come and just share their feelings.
Beautiful. I'm glad I stumbled into this.
Discussion area over there.
Awesome.
This whole area is
I see the words Conversation Cafe written on the furniture.
Yeah, meant to be a space for like deeper conversations or political, philosophical.
I tripped into the right zone.
Yeah, you did.
How about yourself? Where are we today?
Today we are in Capitol Hill, standing in solidarity to our fellow citizens who for too long have been abused at the hand of the police, but just more generally in a systematic and systemic manner, in a historical manner that reverberates through the present. And so we are here to participate in this dismantling of the system. I personally I'm new to this space, at least to this part of it, and I'm glad and I'm proud to be here.
That's awesome. Well, how has this affected you? How are you doing today?
Well, I was standing in front of a wall in memoriam of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and so many others, and I couldn't help but to feel the emotion of this reality that we're living in this country that may not always be evident for somebody coming from a place of privilege as myself, but that is an intrinsic part of the place that we live in. And so being face to face with that, I think is something that brings up an emotion that I think can only be a first step towards a reckoning and a call to action. So that's why I'm here.
Beautiful. Well, I appreciate your words and your time, and keep it curious.
I'd like to speak a little bit to that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
yeah, lots and lots of tears and anger and frustration, tension. There's a power struggle going on, essentially. This space, to me, is the first space that I've been able to relax my nervous system in and feel like real change is happening and there's like real hope. Something is missing to me when the chanting and the singing and the art and the community discussions aren't there, when it's just marches and rallies and protests. It gets the attention, and like the deeper message sometimes gets lost.
Yeah.
I mean, the chanting is good, and you know, it's at the forefront of a vehicle to spread that message. You know, no justice, no peace, Black Lives Matter, power to the people. You know, all those chants that you hear that you can't hear on the news. You know, when you're watching the mainstream media. I was in the woods when this very first erupted, and when I came in and was trying to get caught up on what was happening, it looks way different than it feels. It feels to me like home. There are a lot of Occupy people out here. There's a lot of Rainbow Gathering people out here. If you have a need when you enter this space, if you're cold, if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, you are provided for. There's no money being exchanged, well, except for the vendors that are kind of on the outskirts.
You got it, yeah.
There's tons of food in the park that's just available.
Yeah.
You know, people that have abundance are sharing abundance. People that are in need are getting their needs met. So it feels really, really good. Really like actual community, right? Like us white people, how we've learned how to like nuclear family style. You know, this is what village feels like to me. This is what real fucking connection and community is.
Absolutely.
All people are here. There were some elders speaking on the mic last night in the park. We're all here, like all ages, all walks of life. People that don't live here, people that live literally in this neighborhood, a block away. You know, we've got people that have been in the civil rights movement for decades. We've got people that just started yesterday. You know, it's like that's what matters. We're all,
that's awesome. Would you say this is a place of healing?
Yeah. I mean, just the presence of the art alone, and the fact that there's no leader. And that people can come and get their needs met. You know, that's the real, and that people are sitting down and talking to straight. We just met, like, you know. That's
quick pan, B-roll. Yeah, absolutely. That's super exciting.
Yeah, kind of audio kind of cuts out and gets a little funky after that because I'm not a professional cameraman. So, but
what's interesting about that specific clip that you had there is that she really addresses something that I think is really important about this moment, Chaz, in particular, is the evolution of protests. Now, a lot of different protests over the course of history have had certain things that worked, certain things that didn't. With the first wave, I would consider the real first wave of American protests in this century would have to be the labor movement, right? And the labor movement, if you have studied the history behind that, was a very violent and bloody affair. Actually, I just had a constitutional scholar on last week who let me know that Grover Cleveland actually utilized the Insurrection Act of 1807 to send the military in to kill and put down train workers' strike for the railroads.
yeah, I remember. It was like railroads and coal miners too. I think in Kentucky, like they had like bombs going off in towns and
So just kind of looking, at the labor movement, they kind of that kind of idea of violence was then flipped on its head in the 1960s protests because Martin Luther King knew that it wasn't going to be the protests that were going to sway, white folks on the civil rights. It was going to be using the media to show how brutal the police were being to those people, watching them get hosed down.
That's some shit.
Showing the
Like,
thumb.
man, like, I don't know, dude. Like, from the beginning, Mr. Officer, you have a PR problem. You've been filmed too many times beating people senseless. Well, Mr. Civilian, I've never been held accountable. So I've never had to do that. I don't give a fuck. You can go suck my dick. Well, sir, you can't say suck my dick on TV. That upsets everyone. And here we are. Like, it's just like, come on. Like, the protest against police brutality is met with police brutality. And it's just like, yeah, man. They're shooting themselves in the foot, you know? Before I get off, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, like, looking at Chaz in particular, it appears to me, and this includes the Occupy as well, when they actually tried to occupy that certain space, it seems to me like they have incorporated the different tactics that worked for different protests over the years, whether it's the ability to stand up to police, the ability to take a beating and come right back and take another beating just to get the footage out there to sway the American consciousness, the ability to stay and occupy an area instead of keeping a protest moving. They've taken all the different things that have evolved in American protests. They've taken what's worked and they've lumped it all into one spot. And that's why
absolutely
it's so successful.
Absolutely. I spent all day looking for anyone in the inner circle, anyone in the leadership. You know, like I can talk to people. You know, I'm not shy. You know, I've been around the festy scene. I know how to talk to the people. You know, like so. To me, like. Yeah, well, I should say I talked to my friend Derek, who during the Occupy movement, he lived in Oakland, and he was pretty heavily involved in the dealings down in Oakland. And he told me, "You'll never talk to the leadership because they don't want to be talked to." That is a chink in the armor. As soon as if any leadership is identified or comes forth as a leader, what's going to happen? Bad things will happen.
Well, they just found 2 bodies of Black Lives Matter protests washed up in a river in Tennessee. So, I mean, folks are going missing and winding up dead who are, organizers for this thing. I mean, you look at the civil rights movement, how many black leaders were assassinated by law enforcement, how many protesters disappeared off buses. I mean, it's not a new tactic.
And as a Seattleite, man, I got to get on Facebook and I'm watching this, American Patriots retake Seattle, groups that are like starting to form. It's like, okay, so you guys send a bunch of biker bougie boys down here to like free my city from people handing out free donuts. Like what are you gonna do? You're gonna bring guns into my city because we're handing out free donuts? Like that okay, good job. Like, again, that's just the media complex, like, perpetrating this silly story that keeps people fired up. And it's just like the narrative is just completely wrong. It's just dead wrong. And it's actually, I got a clip for that. So while I was there, I saw thousands and thousands and thousands of peaceful protesters. There's one dude, one guy, had a Jesus Save shirt on. He had a little speaker box, and he's playing a bunch of gospel music off his phone. That's all I knew. And I'll let me fire this one up. So kind of give you some context here. I'm standing out in the street. I hear some chants, no big deal. But I've seen, like, this is probably like hour 2. So I've already been around, it's 2 blocks, so you're hanging out in the city block for 2 hours. You're going to make a couple laps. So this is probably my second lap through the thing. I noticed the Jesus Save shirt guy, only because he was screaming very loudly, and he had a very hoarse voice, and he's like screaming. He's holding a speaker box, and the whole time I'm thinking, I'm like, dude, just bring a fucking microphone, save your voice. But so he's screaming, and the interesting and let's just watch. You'll see. I want to put my commentary before the video, but it's so hard to hold back. So again, standing in the street, hear some chants. I look over my shoulder, and this is what I see.
You know what you're screaming right now, Black Lives Matter, right? You got sisters up that hill right now. We need everybody up that way, right now. Everybody get that way. We need everybody that way. We have real stuff that way. This man's stolen property. He's not getting it back because he chose some space speakers. What? And disrupt it. You just stole from me. Got it right here. It's right here. I'm not going nowhere. I'm not getting it back until you choose to come by. Witness. Yo, bro. Give me my phone back. Give me my phone back. Chill out. Give my phone back. Oh my God. Stop that kid.
Are you here for this, or are you here for Black Lives Matter?
No,
I'm here for Black Lives Matter. Okay, this is not your show. You're right. Okay, thank you. Let's go to Black Lives Matter. This is not your show. This is not what we're here for, right? All right. Yes, sir. Thank you. All right.
Woo! I find it really funny that the guy who has a shirt that says "Trust Jesus" didn't trust Jesus because he was standing right there chanting. Like, there was a guy dressed like Jesus standing right there chanting. Why didn't the guy trust Jesus? He didn't do what his shirt said.
Okay. We gotta rewind the tape. Okay, so we're gonna go back. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna add my commentary this time because there's a lot to unpack in this video. Okay, so what's happening is there's a guy who is there for abortions or stopping abortions. Okay.
Wait, first up, question: is there an abortion clinic anywhere in the vicinity?
I don't know.
So I'm going to assume no.
I don't know. I cannot confirm or deny. I do not know. So the guy wearing the Trust Jesus shirt has a speaker box. He's playing music, trying to like wash out the people doing lectures. Somebody took his phone so he could to stop him from interrupting the speeches. And so the altercation starts to kind of boil up because this guy's got this other dude's phone. The Jesus Saves guy. Let's just go to the video. Let's go back to the video here.
Yeah.
So I can show you specifically what I'm talking about. So we're going up to the middle. Everyone's chanting. So what you can't. So right now you can see his mouth moving. I'll give you a guess of what he's chanting. And the people surrounding him are trying to drown him out.
Yeah.
This guy's been screaming something. I'm not going to say what it is. But also notice he's drinking a bottle of water. Where do you think he got that bottle of water? Just pointing that out there. So this tired guy who's been screaming words, interrupting what's going on, is being surrounded by people, being drowned out, being offered water, mind you, and just being told, hey, man, read the room, basically.
Well, that he's being told by Jesus to read the room. So, I mean, like he's right there next to him. Like, you think he would, like, go with Jesus in that situation. You should put your trust, right?
I'm obviously, Jim, you had Where's Waldo as a kid, and you spotted Waldo. Jesus Christ himself is on video at this rally. Look, I wish I could zoom in. I don't know that I have the technology to do so, but there is literally a guy. he's got it all. He's head to toe. Guys, is Jesus. All right, so they walk past me. They go up the street. We're still chanting. And so let me cue up a little bit here. The guy stops moving, and I just want you to see if you can see what I see. Right here. Boom!
Oh, giving a Nazi salute.
Boom! The guy in the Trust Jesus shirt that's talking about getting rid of abortions
just gave a Nazi salute to Jesus, a Jewish man standing right in front of him.
Rewind 2 seconds. Whose hand goes up? Ka-chow. Gotcha, dude. Like, come on, bro. Come on. Like, come on. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Why are you giving a Nazi salute to Jesus? The man was Jewish.
So, the crowd reaction, mind you, could have made this dude bleed and nobody would have said a word, man.
Oh,
but
said a word.
What does the crowd do when they see the Hitler salute?
Black Lives Matter! Whose lives matter?
Watch.
Whose lives matter? Black Lives Matter!
There's one.
Whose lives matter? Black Lives Matter!
So this other dude shows up.
Black Lives Matter! Whose lives matter? Black Lives
Boom!
Power to the people.
Power to the people, baby. Just like, what? What? Like, anti-abortion, Trust Jesus, playing gospel music, is screaming about abortions to the point where his voice is raspy. Somebody gave him a bottle of water. Hey, man, you sound hoarse. Here's a bottle of water. So he proceeds to storm down the street. And mind you, he was chanting his own chant, which was being drowned out by the people, by Jesus and squad chanting Black Lives Matter. And then he throws up a fucking Hitler salute.
Well, I mean, I'm glad in that situation, the entire crowd did what Jesus would do, turn the other cheek and then throw up a sign of unity. Because I mean, yeah, that could have gone a lot of different ways.
It could have gone way bad. All right. So the other thing I want to point out is this dude at the end who had a bicycle helmet, and he's got a 360 cam on his helmet. And if you notice, the guy who came in with the power with the power to the people is telling everyone, "Hey, there's speeches up the road. Let's fucking go listen to these people. This is what they're gonna say is way more powerful than what you're gonna see here."
Yeah, for sure.
And this guy, so I'm recording this, and I had a sign on, I had a little cardboard A-frame on that said podcast interviews, unusual minds with J.E. Frey podcast interviews. I wanted to be very obvious that I was kind of an independent media. It was a piece of fucking cardboard with your name written on it, dude. So it wasn't like I had a fucking media badge from CNN or anything. But this guy...
Are you here for Black Lives Matter?
No,
I'm here for Black Lives Matter.
Okay, this is not your show.
You're right.
Okay.
I put my tail between my legs and turned around because I respected the fuck out of that guy for coming up and saying that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, that right there is all the media coverage you need of the Chaz. Everything that I'm going to say after that could be summed up by what this guy is saying. In the story that we're receiving is not the story that those little tiny altercations that I turned around to film that we could sit here and talk about and send this to Fox News and that this dude got his phone stolen and all this is not happening. And there's people out there that are looking out and making sure that that's not happening.
Yeah.
So props to this dude, and I will say, I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I'm some badass that's going to be like, yeah, fuck you, I can do what I want. That took some brass ones, dude. It caught me off guard, and I was just kind of like, well, he's right. So let's
go to Black Lives Matter. This is not
I'll sulk. Let me turn around and sulk away.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right.
So, hey, man, if that dude ever sees this podcast, props to you, dude. Like, I got to respect that guy. So,
well, he's being responsible, though, too, because I mean, he's someone who's aware of how the media will try and twist anything that it possibly can to support the narrative of the state, which I mean is the stance of the status quo. And I mean, this movement in particular is about change, and change is always going to be the media's last resort if they can make it.
Definitely. Now, this next video is kind of fun. So this is I'm standing on the back end of the soccer field or football field. It's like an AstroTurf multi-sport field, whatever. So anyway, there's like a whole row of easy ups that just have like charging stations and free food and water and all that stuff to hand out. And so there's just some dudes hanging out there and just seeing what's up.
Where are you today?
Huh?
Where?
Yeah.
Oh, we're
in Capitol Hill, man. Cal Anderson Park, 11 to Pine.
Yeah?
Yes, sir.
Yes. In Jacksonville.
Where are you in life?
I'm in a very confused place,
Yeah?
Yeah, it's definitely one of those eras where like next to tomorrow's not promised, Just in a head state where I hope that what I'm doing is making a change in the cause, I hope this isn't for nothing.
Yeah. Well, I see you've definitely brought out some change in charge. Can you kind of describe what we're standing under and what
this
all
isn't even my tent, bro. I'm just holding down for the homie.
This right here is a makeshift tent, of course, designated to charge phones for anybody in need.
Yep. So you got a couple of deep cells over there,
sure.
Getting everyone charged up.
See the thing, this is his tent right here, man. It's providing all the power.
All right, man. We got the power man.
Over there. Good luck, because SPU was out here the other day, I think, talking with someone tried to get tried to get at the power last night, or the other night, because the lights turn off at 10, so we try to rig it up, and I think they've been out here trying to crack down on it.
So I'm just trying to fill my bucket up with water so I can lay that down. I just need literally 4 gallons of regular water.
shit, I'm pretty sure you can get
I
it.
need the little square.
You can have those water bottles.
I need the little square valve thing. Actually,
Oh, good luck finding that.
Dude, that'd be even better.
Yeah. Yeah. More questions? Yeah.
I mean, how you feeling today?
I feel great. You know, I'm 22. You know, I've lived a made a lot of pretty shitty decisions, and been figuring it out in the last year and a half, 2 years, whatever. And I had an opinion on racism. I had an opinion on police brutality. I had an opinion on all this shit, but I never. Like, I knew it was wrong, but like I don't know if you heard of Saeed Joaquin. He's one of the names going around. That was a really good friend of mine, and I might start tearing up. Fuck. He was a really good friend of mine. He got shot 6 times with his seatbelt on, his hands fucking up by this fucking pig named Mike Wiley on May 1st. And he left my house at 2:30. He was dead at 4, and he doesn't have a voice anymore, bro. And like,
But you're here right now.
yeah, I'm here on his behalf.
Yeah, dude.
That he can't speak, so I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's big. And I feel like if he was here today, he'd really respect that.
Yeah, dude, I respect that. We all respect that.
Yeah, man.
There's nothing but respect here. That's
All
why
love
we're
out
all here.
man. And that's the thing, man. It's so great to see everybody just fucking loving each other,
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you are no different than me, and he is no different than you. You know what I mean? Anybody here, like, it's fucking beautiful.
That's why I'm recording these words, trying to get them out to the world,
Hell
man.
yeah.
Because
they're painting,
if you're
a pretty fucked up image of what's going on.
Yeah, if you're getting this out to the world, it is nothing but love out here. All these pictures of people with guns and fucking violence, that exists. There are guns, there is violence, but right now it is fucking all love. And except this fucker, man, we get a bunch of cats out here trying to spread different messages, but the main one's not lost.
yeah, it seems like there's only one kind of rebel rouser. Can you guys describe that one guy? Well, no, let's not give him a platform. Let's not talk about him. Let's talk about.
I mean, I will say this at least. So, this, everybody's here for. Not everybody. There are people that party. There are people that just fuck around, right? But the main thing, everybody's here for the Black Lives Matter movement, which is fucking great, And if you have some other shit that you want to push, if you come out like that guy specifically is pushing like some anti-abortion stuff. There's like some guy was like carrying a legalized mushroom sign. Like, you can push whatever you want because you have just as much of a right to be here as I do. And same with him, same with anybody here. So like, if you come in with whatever message, you can spread it, but you gotta realize that maybe it's not the right time for that specific message. Maybe you gotta hop on the bandwagon that everybody else is on for a minute and just kind of ride that for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
There very well could be a time for some anti-abortion bullshit, but now is not the time for it. So that can fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty mature message coming from a 22-year-old.
Yeah, dude. I mean, his friend was shot and killed literally days before I talked to him. So
yeah,
he's lived a lifetime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and the fact that his friend died a few days before everything started happening. So like, talk about your entire world getting turned upside down all at once, particularly if he lives in that neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I don't know. I think one of the I think the major achievement of Chaz, whatever it may be, is going to be the fact that I think it'll be remembered as a space of hope, because there's no authority right there. It's just people taking care of each other. And that's what people need to be seeing on the media. People need to have that hope. Everything is everything's not as dreary as it seems, and there's still good out there. It's worth fighting for.
Absolutely. It's the words over and over and over we've heard are, love, kindness, respect. It's a place of healing. It's a place of hope. And it was born out of kind of chaos, but I think this segues well to my next clip. So one thing to note too is people were very weird about me carrying a camera around. A lot of the vendor signs, there are a lot of the vendors and like the kind of like free food stands had big signs that said no photography.
Right.
So a lot of the interviews that I got, the camera's kind of pointed down at the ground, or I'm like covering the lens or whatever. And that's to kind of give people some comfort. So if you're watching the videos of this, like, sorry, you're getting a lot of shoegazing here, but this next one, I think, really touches on some of those points that we were just talking about. And interestingly enough, I think, well, you'll hear it. This guy's job title is just top notch.
Not taking any video. Just recording audio.
He has good work.
Where are you today?
I'm in the autonomous zone, right? You mean where am I? Well, I came to see because I was hearing media coverage, some media coverage. I was seeing posts on Facebook that it was violent, that there was coercion, that there were guns, things like that. Obviously, none of that's true. I haven't seen one gun since I've been here. I see nothing but peace. Yeah.
How'd you hear about it?
Who didn't? I mean, I follow the media pretty heavily. So it's on just about every outlet from the extreme right to the extreme left.
And what's the portrayal you've seen on within the media?
Well, like I said, I think it hasn't been accurate. I think there's a lot of, they're talking about guns and coercion and coercing business owners and taking hostage this part of the community, and the community is reticent about it. Those kind of things. I'm just not seeing that. I've heard several people say they live in these buildings and they're all in.
It'd be hard not to be.
Yeah, but they seem okay with it too. I mean, I'm a criminal defense attorney, right? So I deal with the injustice every day. Okay, I've practiced in multiple jurisdictions in this state, and the reality is that even in the jurisdictions that I consider not biased or not prejudiced, it's impossible to get my black defendants the same deal as I get my white defendants. It is absolutely impossible. Okay?
Why is that?
Because the system is, that's the thing, I can't figure it out. Because even when I'm dealing with prosecutors that I know and respect that are not racist, some of whom are even Democrats and even extremely liberal, I still can't get the deals out of their departments that I can get for my white guys.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Well, you're standing in front of a vacant police department now.
Yeah.
How does that change things?
I don't know in what way. I mean, I think this is long overdue. I think that I think that the only way as a society we're going to change is for the people that aren't affected to be affected. And now that they're getting affected, they have to face what's actually happening, right? That's going to create the change because now they're uncomfortable, and it's very sad that their level of discomfort is minuscule compared to what my clients have endured.
And what did it take for them to feel uncomfortable?
Well, I hate to say it, but a hard pill to swallow is we've gotten more done in a week of riots than we did in 20 years of voting for liberal politicians. It's a hard pill to swallow, and I don't approve of violence.
Right.
But it is making everyone uncomfortable, and no one can ignore the fact that something's wrong. And we're looking at a time where the police are under the most scrutiny that they've been in the last 200 years, and they still cannot not engage in brutality. And it's because of their training. It's not the cops. It's not, everybody's like, oh, there's some bad cops. No, there's a lot of bad training. And that training teaches them to dominate and control and manipulate. And that training is great for a military, but it's horrendous for a society.
Defense attorney.
Yeah, he hit the nail on the head right there. I think that's going to be another long-term success of the Chaz, is that it made the cops realize that responding with brutality and force is not the only way. And honestly, in this situation, it is the most ineffective way that you could possibly go about it. Because, like you were said earlier, people are just going to come and they're going to get their ass beat, go home, take a shower, and come right back. Because, I mean, frankly, this is just my opinion, mind you, but society is on a major tilt one way or another. And, at this point in history, everyone's got some skin in this game. Nobody's on the sidelines anymore.
Absolutely, man. I think the thing that really caught my ear of that defense attorney's words were inconvenience. Until this became inconvenient for everybody, that it got hold, it got traction.
Yeah.
Is it inconvenient for protesters to clog up the roads? Yeah, but when you do that, that also, causes issues, frustrations with people that are trying to get to where they're going.
Yep.
Yeah, they closed down some roads in this neighborhood, but it's a 2-block area, dude. You can just turn right 2 more times and go around it. It's not a big deal.
Right.
So they're not really. It's not really inconveniencing traffic. What it is inconveniencing are the people that live there. It inconveniences me, who I don't even live in the neighborhood, but the fact that my president is threatening to send the fucking military, a couple doors down to go to tell the neighbors to quiet down. Not cool. It inconveniences just obviously the people that need response help, if there is a robbery in the area, if you tried to rob somebody right now in that neighborhood, how well do you think that's going to go for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
It'll be just like it'll just be like that situation with Nazi Jesus lover. You're gonna have a group of 20 people trying to stop you, pulling you away from whatever it is that you're doing.
Exactly. And this last interview is an interview I took with the guy who he was standing in between. There's an alley behind the police station that goes back, I don't know, maybe 300-400 yards.
Okay.
It's just regular old alleyway, but it is full of graffiti of a lot of ACAB type imagery. And so I caught up with this dude. There's 2 big street, traffic thingies, basically keeping people out of this alley. So I just wanted to know, why was he protecting the alley? Let's go to the video. And again, camera's down.
I'm on Capitol Hill, sir.
Where are we standing?
We're standing in the alleyway of the police precinct. Right now, this alleyway is considered a private driveway. And what we don't want is unrest between the tenants that live here and us protesters. We're here for a common goal. We're here for a certain goal, and that's to make sure that the police is reformed by defunding them and all that. We don't need people to go further down, because further down there's businesses on the left. These are tenants that live here, and these are neighbors that live in this neighborhood of Capitol Hill, and we don't want to create a stressful environment between us.
That's wonderful. So I see you have a couple signs here that we're close the streets in this alley, and you're just keeping the riffraff out of here?
Trying to keep people from spray painting any more negative narratives and stuff. You know, they said there's, you know, signs like "fuck the police" and stuff. That takes away from Mr. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Black Lives Matter, Breonna Taylor. That takes away from all of that and stuff. What we want is a complete reform of the law enforcement in this state, not only in this state, but every other state nationwide and stuff. We need to understand that these archaic laws that were made before any of us were born need to be radically taken away and stuff.
Absolutely. Can you expand more on what you're talking about with the narrative?
So the narrative of them, this whole Capitol Hill autonomous zone and stuff, them pushing Chaz. Chaz never originated in Seattle. It came from outside of it. Wednesday, when I checked my phone at 9 o'clock in the morning, I seen that somebody on Fox News, it went national before it went local. Somebody on Fox News had posted a picture where it said Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. So we came here Wednesday morning, showed it to the leaders. We all came in agreement that we're not Chaz. We don't know what Chaz is. We don't agree with that and stuff. So that whole narrative of it coming from Fox and the conservative, we don't need that here.
Absolutely.
We're here for a peaceful protest. We're here to make sure that this is ours. The police precinct is ours. And once we move in, we'll change it to a center for equality. That's what this is. This police precinct will be a symbol for all different walks of life in Seattle, because we are probably one of the biggest melting pots in the entire U.S. There's all walks of life here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's everything I've been seeing. It's just a beautiful
we just want
collection.
to make sure that whatever they see on the narrative for major media influences is completely different from the
Yeah, sorry, I think my battery died right in the middle of that one. But man,
so he didn't live in that building, right? He was just there to make sure that protesters didn't bother the folks that lived there.
Correct.
And I mean that is the protesters going out of their way to protect the interests of the residents that live there.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So when all the riots were going down, how many cops would have stood by and watched that building just get destroyed?
I think that was their goal.
Yeah,
that could be fodder for a whole nother conversation.
Well, I mean, the one thing I will say about the protest is a lot of the strange occurrences that have been popping up. The fact, and you know, this is just the conspiracy theorist in me. The fact that there were pallets of bricks that just mysteriously showed up in every major city, on every major route that was planned, and they just appeared overnight. Now, when I was talking to a fellow last week, he said that the only organization that could make that happen is the federal government.
Yeah, I did listen to who that was a constitutional scholar that you had on. I did listen to that episode. That they had the manpower, the resources, and what have you to do that.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Like I wasn't there when the police precinct was abandoned. I wasn't there when the street pylons went across the road. So I don't know. I can't really speak to what had happened. I can only speak to what I saw.
Right.
And what I saw was that it was a place of healing. It's a place to come and learn. It's a place to come and experience this new kind of way of doing things. And I hate to say it again, but dude, Chaz is jazz, man. It's social jazz. It's literally like I can't believe I made that up literally while we're sitting here talking. Like, but it is, man, and like it's just it's terrifying that this guy that is sitting between these two buildings is fucking exhausted, man. Like you can hear it in his voice. Yeah, I could see it in his eyes. Like
Yep, he's been there all day.
he's been there
and
all
all
day,
night.
and he's probably still there right now. And like I- you know that kind of participation, that kind of dedication, like when you ask like what would the cops do, well, your answer, they already gave you their answer: turn tail and leave.
Yeah, after they exhaust every option of beating you. And I mean, and another thing I want, another country I guess I should give props to is both Germany, I think it was Scotland as well, put a ban on importing tear gas and rubber bullets to the United States because of the way that the police responded. So the fact of the matter is that a lot of these police stations where they were getting their materials from, those countries are cutting us off because we don't have the means to make them here anymore. So we're kind of at their limb on what they want to allow us to have. So tariffs do work both ways.
Yeah, ain't that some shit? I'm thinking to myself when you mentioned that. Obviously, they're putting in orders for more.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they, does that mean that their supplies are already dwindling because they've been, spraying that stuff off like a power washer? I mean, it's like, I don't know, man. We're in such weird times, and living here in Seattle and kind of seeing all this stuff, unfold. I just kind of feel like a dry leaf falling into a river, man. It's just like I just gotta go with the flow. I the one thing that I could do while I'm down here that I could help this movement with is literally recording it and trying to get the word out of what is happening down there. So, Jim, I really want to thank you for providing me the time to express the stuff that I've been seeing, and take the time to listen to other people too, and to get their word out, because overall, I mean, people, they do have a big PR problem on their hands, much like the police. But the difference is that these punk rockers know what the media is capable of. They know that they know how this stuff is getting edited. The day that I was there was the day that the Fox News launched that digitally edited photo. So yeah, man, I couldn't take videos of me doing interviews. I had to put the camera to the ground because it's the only way people are going to talk. It's like the only way we're going to solve this is by letting people talk.
Absolutely, because I mean, at the end of the day, that's how you de-escalate a situation, right? You de-escalate that situation by validating the concerns of each other, and I mean that's the one thing that the police need to do is they need to validate the concerns that the entire institution that they built on and 40 years of training and militarization has transformed the police department to, I mean, and at least in my experience, they at oftentimes, instead of seeming like peace officers, they seem like an occupying force.
Definitely.
They act with immunity, they act above the law. And in this age of social media, when everybody has a phone, everybody has the ability to record, that's just not going to fly anymore. I mean, and plus, I think the one thing that people, I mean, I don't believe that people are just protesting bad cops. Why the reason Black Lives Matter is such a large movement, and it'll go back to the protest I participated in. I'm in a pretty rural area outside of Chicago, and my rural area had 300 people protesting at it. And
wow.
And about 60-70% of them were probably white. So it's not just protesting a few bad cops, it's protesting an entire justice system that has been corrupted. It's protesting the fact that the United States has 5% of the world's population, but yet 25% of the world's prison population. It's a protest against the privatization of prisons and how, because they're profit driven. They go out of their way to lobby for laws that will lock up more nonviolent offenders so they can keep them in jail for longer periods of time, because nonviolent offenders, once they get to prison and in a private institution, they tend to be nonviolent, right?
Yeah.
You can actually force them to work in slave labor, making Nike shoes, or what I want to say it was, oh man, what was the other? Victoria's Secret. What was that was getting made by inmates in like Georgia. I was watching a thing about it. So I mean, all the manufacturing that's done in the United States, the majority of it is being done in prisons, which is terrible to think about.
Yeah, it's like you were saying, like you really nailed it. It's just, this is a protest about change and supporting the community. It's just like, we've had an entire population of humans subjugated to absolute horrible law, horrible justice system. I mean, you can listen to the defense attorney right there say it. This dude's in the system trying to change it. He's running, speed bump after speed bump into wall after wall. And it's just how do you change it? I don't know, but I do think that this protest, this gathering, this village is a glimpse of how the evolution of protests. It's kind of it's the best of hits. You're not going to get an interview with the leadership because they're not going to show their face. On the same token, though, you're not going to see the leadership of those right wingers that are trying to get all the motorcycle gangs to show up to take back the free hot dog stands. It's just like, I don't know, man. We're seeing this weird psyops thing happening out there, and again, all we can do, use these and try to make a change. I don't know what else to do.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of it's out of our hands, because I feel like society, governments, like power structures, institutions, were at this pivotal point of change. And I often go back to my buddy who's really into astrology. He was telling me how Uranus is in Taurus when like all the protests started happening, when the pandemic started happening. And the last time that happened was 84 years ago, when we saw global depression, the rise of the Third Reich. But he went on to talk about how Pluto is returning, and it's returning into the sign of Capricorn. Now, the last time that happened, and then that is symbolic for a great change, that was 248 years ago, 1772.
Huh.
So if that doesn't give you a little bit of hope for, something that is so out of our control, but a shift of change in the positive, I mean, that was, I don't want to say it was the beginning of the Enlightenment era, but that was definitely the climax of it, when, people threw off old ways of doing things. So I have a lot of hope that what Chaz will go down as is a symbolic victory. An example of how things could be if we just trusted each other and didn't trust these institutions and authorities.
That's perfect, man, because this last clip is it's not an interview, it's me just walking through, but the two songs that you're going to hear, I think you'll get a kick out.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man. There you have it.
Way to live off of it, man. It's a perfect way to leave out of it.
Well, hey Jim, I appreciate the time, man. Let's anybody listening to this, please share this podcast. This is as honest to goodness journalism as you're ever going to get from two stoners from each side of the continent. So thanks again, man.
Yeah, man, and thanks for coming on, sharing your footage and sharing your experiences inside the Chaz. And, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to leave you with a quote from one of my favorite writers, J. Michael Skarinsky. I know you haven't heard of him because he's a comic book writer. And, he wrote one of the best Captain America quotes within his span of the character. And the quote goes like this: "It doesn't matter what the press says. It doesn't matter what the politicians or the mob say. It doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something wrong is something right. This nation was founded on one principle above all else: the requirement that we stand up for what we believe. No matter the odds or the consequences, when the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, it is your job to plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move." Good night, folks.
Sayonara.